think that the genes we were born with when they first constructed our bodies set it into stage. So if we have a propensity down the road for breast cancer or whatever, that's just going to sit there like a ticking time bomb until it's triggered, for example. But the genes that built the initial body when we went from an egg to a human walking toddler, that's pretty much mapped out. On the other hand, we've got this idea that nothing's really static in the body, that it's just an energy imprint, and that the physical molecules just fill in and things change daily. This Deepak Chopra idea that there's a myth to do with materialism, and they're really just energy imprints. And the same atom that makes up your little toe isn't going to be there a year from now. It's just only the pattern is replacing. So I guess on terms of the genes, and also when you talk about the metabolism responding to the environmental cold that day, it's not that does it have to go to the genes to say, oh, here, we need this? No, because all of those things are already in our system.
That's right.
And they're already provided, and then you have a flex zone of how to respond here and there. So I guess I'm asking, once the body is built, what do the genes do? Do they just sit there and go, oh, this part's worn down, well, let's replace it and go back to the blueprint to replace this little cell right here or this little piece
in a
of
static
skin?
existence.
Yeah.
And if your life is exactly the same and you eat everything the same and the days are exactly the same,
Which they're never going to be.
But if they could be, then the function of the cells would be just to replace the parts as you use them during that processing of that straightforward life. Okay? So basically, your first idea is, do they just sit there and replace the parts? And the answer is, if you don't require any changes, then the genes that code for those parts you're using will be active to replace the parts as you use them.
Okay.
Simple. But if you change your environment, if you undergo changes in what's going on, then what you have to do is adapt to the changes. So let's say at some point you're not exercising, and then you get a job where you have to carry roof shingles up to the roof every day. Well, all of a sudden, as soon as you start the job, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to start to exercise the muscles. Well, exercise the muscles means then you're going to have to turn on the genes to increase the muscle mass and increase the functional grouping and organization of the muscles to work with what you're doing.
Oh, so in order for the body to respond to exercise, it actually goes back to the gene?
Well, it actually goes back to embryonic cells. It takes stem cells. There are stem cells that are embryonic cells in the muscle that are there when you need to increase the mass of the muscle. It's a two-step process. The individual muscle cells that are already there will start to get a little bigger, but it will also require the development of these stem cells to make new muscle mass, which fuses with the existing cells, because there's a ratio of cell cytoplasm to nuclei, and as the cells get bigger, they need more nuclei, and that's more cell division.
Oh, how interesting. So it's like the body says, gee, I'm not building a super highway to this muscle unless there's demand on it.
Absolutely.
Oh,
and it works backwards as well. I build up my muscles, and then I don't do this job anymore.
It goes back to a two-lane highway.
It goes back, and it removes, and it goes through apoptosis, and cells get lost, and you remodel at the moment. And the beautiful part about it is, this is the simple truth of life, and it's been repeated to people over and over again. Everybody goes, but the reality is this: use it or lose it. And the concept of aging is directly tied into this process, because our belief, again, remember the belief gets in the way here, I'm getting old, well then I better not do this anymore. Okay, the moment you don't do it, and guess what your system will do? Say, well, then we won't maintain the structure that was doing that,
right?
And it will take it away. So, for example, osteoporosis, big pharmaceutical deal, because they're making lots of bucks of what? Selling people calcium. And some form of calcium. And here's the issue. The reason why most osteoporosis exists is not because of our belief that this is a natural part of aging. The reason why it does exist is because when people get that old, they stop moving around.
Right, they stop stressing the muscle.
They don't exercise anything. And the result about that is, the density of the bone you have to maintain the bone. Bone is living. It's not like concrete, you pour it and then you leave it there. Bone is living. So the system is very efficient and says, if you're not going to use this to that degree, I'm not going to maintain it to that degree.
Oh, right. It'd be like having a whole big mansion that you have to staff and everything. If nobody ever goes in there, why maintain it?
Because if you waste that money, you lose your efficiency and then you die.
Right.
And the system in biology has always been based on efficiency, which of course humans
Survival.
have failed to really have any concept in the way we're living. And by definition, any organism that is inefficient will become extinct.
I see.
And so
because it's trying to conserve its resources because it never knows what's around the corner and what's going to be demanded of it.
It keeps everything mobilized so that it can adjust and change for whatever the next change is. So it can't overinvest in something that's not being used because it's a waste of its resources and ties up this chance for change.
Okay, so if a person believes, oh, I'm now, 60 years old or something, and therefore I'm going to get osteoporosis, it's not the belief that does it. You're saying you can believe, oh, gee, this is the age when all my friends are falling down and breaking their hips or whatever. It's not the belief. It's the fact that they're going, oh, well, I better not go out and walk around the block. I better not go dancing and all of that. Oh, now this is interesting. So what is the role of consciousness? Because doesn't our body respond to our mind?
Absolutely.
Haven't we demonstrated that in hypnosis and other kinds of? Tell us that part.
Well, okay, every cell is intelligent. I used to clone cells, human cells, for my research when I was at the university, and the interesting part about that is...
You used to clone human cells?
Yeah.
And what kind of cells?
I cloned
heart cells,
vascular cells and muscle cells.
Heart cells and muscle cells?
Actually, vascular cells, the walls of the blood vessels, which are very, very, very important, and so, what do? That's where the actual exchange occurs between the blood and the tissue. So these cells are the final barrier that opens and closes and decides whether the cells are going to be nourished or whether a protection response is going to occur. So they're the key cell in the immune system in some sense.
Now, when you say cloning, a lot of us don't understand exactly what cloning is, but when a cell divides, that's cloning, isn't it?
No, basically cloning is this. I can take a piece of tissue out of a body and use enzymes and separate all the individual cells, and I throw them into a petri dish, and now I have a large number of cells growing from all different source cells, whatever, out of the tissue. All these different cells are making their own progeny. Cloning is taking any one of those cells, one cell, and put it into a dish by itself. And then everything that was that one cell divided into, every progeny by genetics is connected exactly to the parent cell. So that's called a clone.
And don't cells do that naturally? Don't bacteria naturally just divide and clone themselves?
Yeah, but when you start mixing cells, clones, and populations together, then you get a mix. So I take a piece of skin tissue, but what am I getting? Well, I'm getting fibroblasts, I'm getting blood vessel cells, I'm getting epithelial cells, I'm getting hair cells, I'm getting mast cells. I can list all these cells. Well, that's a very mixed population. What if I wanted to only study the mast cells? What do I do when I get the skin out? It's like a mixture of all these different cells. So what I have to do is isolate just the mast cell, and then the progeny of that is what I want to look at.
Oh, interesting.
So that's where cloning comes in.
And certain enzymes can induce that cell to start making replicas of itself.
Basically, if you control the environment, again, it's an environmental control. The environment will either encourage the cells to grow or not. And the cell will always then respond to and adjust to the environment. So we were starting off with the fact was this: every cell is an intelligent life form.
Okay.
And that when I was cloning cells, I would take them out of a body. Let's say a person, and most of the, many times when I was especially doing work with muscular dystrophy, these people were dying. Okay, so that their internal cellular population was in a turmoil because it's like it was inevitable. The whole thing was starting to crash, right?
Yeah.
And I take these cells out of this person and put them in my culture dish. And it was real interesting because in most cases they grew and flourished in the culture dish. And they flourished because the environment was at that moment better than the environment that I took them from. And so they were intelligent, they could adapt, and they weren't ready to die. Okay? Well, here's the interesting thing. When cells come together to form an organism like a starfish or a clam or a human being, they form a community. So in our body, yes, I have individual cells, but they don't behave as individuals. They all are agreeing to work with the community.
Right.
And they can't exercise their own thoughts, because the moment they exercise their own and go out independent of what the community said,
it's a disease.
It's a cancer or a disease. cancer are cells that said, I'm not participating in your community. I'm going to do what the hell I want to do. And so all of a sudden you start to say, oh, what happened? But community, number one, that's what happened. And the important reality is this. Each cell is intelligent to itself, but each cell in the community will agree to the community intelligence, which meant this. I have to organize the cells so that we're all, as a community, as a population, we're all coherent and we're all going in the same direction, okay?
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden every cell, by definition, is connected to a central voice. The central voice.
We've got the board here.
Yeah. Okay. Now the board is the group. There's more to it than that, but there's a mechanism to observe the environment and then integrate the observations to meaning, which is learning, so that as the eye walks through the environment or a cell walks through the environment and the environmental signals, arrive, whether it's by sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, pressure, whatever. When these signals arise, they come to the organizing center of the brain. Here's what we've received. So this is the information from the environment brain, and then the brain then integrates all those informations to make sense out of it, and then activates a process to tell all the cells, this is what we're going to do.
Oh, boy, interesting. We are talking with Bruce Lipton. You can tell he has worked in the cellular biology realms. Now he's an independent researcher and thinker, putting on the map for you and I to understand just the internal workings of our cells, this community of intelligent beings that make up our bodies, and the genes. He says the genes don't control us. Rather, we control the genes, and the environment controls the genes, and there's a whole new understanding here to do with the genetic code. And Bruce Lipton continues just after this. I'm Lily.
Laura Lee Online. www.lauralee.com.
All interviews on The Laura Lee Show are available on audio cassette. For information, call 1-800-243-1438. The sweet secret of the herb stevia lies in a complex molecule called stevioside, a glycoside composed of glucose, softhrose, and steviol, a complex molecule that gives this herb from Paraguay its extraordinary sweetness, 10 to 15 times sweeter than common table sugar. But here's the really extraordinary part. Stevia does not affect blood sugar metabolism. Some studies even report that stevia reduces plasma glucose levels in normal adults. Sweet, nutritious, natural, and good for you. Wisdom of the Ancients introduces Stevia Plus. Take these little packets with you everywhere, containing powdered stevia that equals 2 teaspoons of sugar in sweetness. Sprinkle on food and beverages alike. I use stevia daily. Add the liquid concentrate to lemon juice and water, and you have refreshing lemonade, and decarbonated water for a soda substitute. Stevia makes any herbal tea taste sweeter and better. Stevia is good for your skin, too, applied externally. Try it. It's versatile, good for you, and sweet without the calories.
Wisdom of the Ancient Stevia products are the highest quality available. Call 1-800-243-1438.
We all try to watch our diet to get a balance of nutrition, but that's not always possible. There's a gap between the nutrition from the average American diet and the optimum diet for the human system. The challenge is to take care of our own health while being able to enjoy comfort foods. That's why nutritionist and biochemist Udo Erasmus developed Missing Link. It bridges this gap with foods naturally high in essential nutrients, trace minerals, vitamins, and fiber. Call 1-800-243-1438. Missing Link is a powder that you sprinkle on your food, making your food taste better, and 3 tablespoons daily is all you need to achieve optimum nutrition. Call 1-800-243-1438. Each bag contains a 1-month supply and is only $19.95. Call 1-800-243-1438.
Laura Lee here on The Laura Lee Show. We continue our conversation with Bruce Lipton. By the way, we have a video of Bruce's for sale at the bookstore that is just fascinating. Call them at 800-243. It's not that does it have to go to the genes to say, oh, here, we need this? No, because all of those things are already in our system.
That's right.
And they're already provided, and then you have a flex zone of how to respond here and there. So I guess I'm asking, once the body is built,
yes.
What do the genes do? Do they just sit there and go, oh, this part's worn down, well, let's replace it and go back to the blueprint to replace this little cell right here or this little piece
in a
of
static
skin?
existence,
yeah.
And if your life is exactly the same and you eat, but if you change your environment, if you undergo changes in what's going on, then what you have to do is adapt to the changes. So let's say at some point you're not exercising, and then you get a job where you have to carry roof shingles up to the roof every day. Well, all of a sudden, as soon as you start the job, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to start to exercise the muscles. Well, exercise the muscles means then you're going to have to turn on the genes to
energy imprint, and that the physical molecules just fill in, and things change daily. You know, this Deepak Chopra idea that there's a myth to do with materialism, and they're really just energy imprints. And the same atom that makes up your little toe isn't going to be there a year from now. It's just only the pattern is replacing. So I guess in terms of the genes, and also when you talk about the metabolism responding to the environmental cold that day, I think that the genes we were born with when they first constructed our bodies set it into stage. So if we have a propensity down the road for breast cancer or whatever, that's just going to sit there like a ticking time bomb until it's triggered, for example. But the genes that built the initial body when we went from egg to a human walking toddler, you know, that's pretty much mapped out. On the other hand, we've got this idea that nothing's really static in the body, that it's just an...
Eat everything the same, and the days are exactly the same.
Which they're never going to be.
Which they're never going to be, but if they could be, then the function of the cells would be just to replace the parts as you use them during that processing of that straightforward life, okay? So basically, your first idea is, do they just sit there and replace the parts? And the answer is, if you don't require any changes, then the genes that code for those parts you're using will be active to replace the parts as you use them.
Okay.